Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fuckwits of all ages. I'm Alone in Finland, this is EVE Online, and today we are just going to be going through a bit of some boring text because there was an update after my last video, and I did make a massive video on it and went through the entire patch notes and all of that jazz, and then forgot to upload the fucking thing, and when I just went to check it today, I was so long-winded that I thought, okay, I can do this better, I'm going to do this better. And there's only one thing I really want to care about, and that is the mining changes. Because Highsec miners are getting a bonus. So, bearing in mind, for all of those people down on my comments that are saying, why are you complaining? Why are you talking about this? This doesn't do anything. Well, this has done something. Talking about this, not just me, lots of people on YouTube, lots of people in the community, gives feedback towards the devs. That's why we do it. That's why you talk about how you feel about the game, because you can get changes made to the game. If enough people feel the same way, this is what happens. And mining in Highsec particularly has been a big problem for a while. With this new update, it kind of highlighted it because they were talking everything about the nullsec, which also influenced these sites coming into lowsec, but they didn't do anything for Highsec, and still they haven't done anything for Poshfin or wormhole space. So I am still fighting for that, but that is not really my domain. I drop in and out of Poshfin. I don't really do much for wormhole space, but that might change when it comes to our lovely new ship that's coming out, because we can do long hauls, and one of my mining alts I'm training up to run this ship as well, so we'll see what's going on from there. However, the changes that are happening, I'm just going to skip through a whole load of what's going on in the update. Sorry if this is sort of messing with your head. And I just want to focus on the actual mining stuff in Highsec, because I think this is fantastic. They are actually paying attention. They have changed a whole load of stuff. I have entirely lost it on the page, but there is some good stuff, and I actually want to highlight this first, this text section. It says, we are adding back the Ombre and Kernite anomalies that were taken away from high security space during the resource distribution that took place 5 years ago. Specifically, we are adding back the Kernite and Ombre anomalies and not the ones containing Jasper and Hemophite. So what they are actually doing is going back to what was before that, because before they had the anomalies, you did get Kernite and Ombre in Highsec. That's why they were contained in missions in Highsec, because you could mine them in 0.5 systems. So the Hemophite was always low sec. I think that was 1.2 only, possibly 0.3. I don't think so. I'm not sure. But they are sort of reverting to the way that it was, because they broke it. And this has pissed off a lot of people. It cost them a lot of players over the long term, and they are trying to rectify it. Now, I still think a dev coming out there and saying, we were wrong, we're trying to do this, especially because nowadays you've got some devs that weren't in the company at the time, it's definitely a thing to say. But this comment section specifically, the actual explanation for it is a good thing to see. This is the transparency I've been talking about. So this is a fantastic thing, and I just want to highlight it because that's what is needed. And when you're looking around the gaming community in general, especially the online gaming community, but also some of the single player games, you are seeing this an awful lot, where the transparent developers are the ones that are succeeding. And because of the nature of how we behave on the internet now, the ones, for instance, the developers of 7 Days to Die, who recently had a very bad update came out that a lot of players hated, a lot of their core YouTubers went after, and they then went and did the live stream and said, oh no, you're confused, it's your fault that we're doing this. And it royally pissed off everyone, and their game got downvote tanked on Steam. And that was sort of because of that same thing that unfortunately in the past in CCP's history, and actually fairly recently in one particular developer's case, has been that sort of same thing where they say, oh no, you don't understand, you're confused. But when you're talking about an online player base, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. You can't sort of say something that generalized, because maybe some people are, but maybe some people know exactly what's going on, or have been in the game long enough to see all of this stuff transpire. You don't understand why we had to do this. You didn't have to do it, you wanted to do it, there's a different thing, and blah blah blah. So that's something that is very good to see now from Eve, that they're not just putting in the patch notes, but they're also putting in these little explanations, and it's sort of showing their idea to help encourage mining in the faction warfare, empire, and war high Q systems. They're sort of putting bonuses into those because they want to incentivize good behavior in good places, but also sort of balance it with a little bit of more combat in those systems and stuff like that. So you can do it there. It's more dangerous. They are still trying to promote well, basically promote violence in the game as a method of driving content. I still sort of disagree with this, because if you put in a good enough system, you don't need to drive the combat comes along with it. However, it's still good to see that they are talking about it, that they are showing it. I would like to see less of the, we're doing this because it will drive fights. You do realise there are other reasons to make the game. Just make a good thing, and if you put it in the right place, a fight will happen around about it. You don't need to design it with that in mind. In fact, if you're designing with that in mind, you're actually sort of biasing yourself in how you're creating the system. But again, that's an opinion of mine versus an opinion of somebody else's, how to do it better. But the main takeaway from this is the transparency, the comment. This is a fantastic thing to see when they're talking about it. So going back to the top, the main part of this video, the mining compound. Revamped asteroid belt remnant sites found in all starter systems, career agent systems, etc. The takeaway is you get one of these instead of three of these in starter systems. You can only get in if you're in a starter corvette or a venture. And you'll get a little bit of boost. There's more stuff there, so it's a boost for the newer players coming into the game, which is always a good thing. Whether you're sort of directed to that, because I've been through the this starter tutorial a few times in the past year, setting up a few different characters, and I've not actually been sort of pushed that way in any of it. And it may be my bias because I'm sort of running your tutorial at speed, but it doesn't seem to have popped up. I have tried to run it twice. My god, it is long. But that's a good thing. Also, if you are from CCP, the beginning tutorial, for the love of God, get more voice actors in it. There is still an awful lot of reading in it. And I would say that all of the mission agents should be narrated. And you could get plenty, absolutely plenty, of free content from the player base, because it would be really funny to get them narrated by the player base for all different times. So you could get mission agents with particular voices. Like for instance, if you've got somebody who's Polish doing it in English with a Polish accent, it could be a nice little treat, a little bit of internationality. But if you've got somebody from Britain that's a Geordie or a Scouser, you are gonna spin the minds out of the Americans or any other sort of culture outside of Britain, going, what the fuck is this thing I'm listening to? Is this even English? I think that'd be hysterical. So, with that out of the way, Kernite Omber anomalies will now spawn rarely in all high security space between 0.5 and 0.8 security rating, as they once did before the resource distribution. Kernite and Omber anomalies have had a full visual pass, so they look pretty. The anomalies will have slightly higher chance to spawn in high security space within 3 jumps of militia faction warfare headquarters. Kernite and Omber anomalies have a small chance to get an escalation to a brand new Highsec exclusive mining escalation, the Shrouded Asteroid Belt. Hidden Omber deposits, which will need to be probed down as scanner probes, will also appear rarely in 0.5 to 0.8 systems. This site contains a plus 15 Platinoid Omber, a higher chance to get the mining mission escalation, and Highsec mining anomalies such as Kernite and Omber sites, rare border sites, ice belts, and the new managed asteroid belt system will now spawn a beacon in space on the overview when the player first warps to them, like faction warfare sites, to give better visibility to new players and showcase mining activity in Highsec. These beacons have been added to the default mining view, so if you're unfamiliar with it, when you're in faction warfare space, the anomalies are sort of there on the anomaly scanner, and when you warp to one for the first time, or when somebody warps to one for the first time, they pop up on the overview for everybody, so you know it's been accessed or used. It's a good system. It's nice and simple. It shows it's there, and it might grab somebody's attention who doesn't normally see it. It also helps with sort of gankers deciding where they want to go. So that's always a good thing. I think I mentioned once when I was talking in the Twitch chat that I think it would be a good idea to see more use of the dead space pockets. So normally these are reserved for sort of missioning and stuff like this, but I think the dead space pockets should be something that becomes more of a core mechanic throughout all space, not just a Highsec thing. But for instance, if you were to put your own stations, because for those of you that don't know, the stations that you get now, the player owned structures, are medium and large, so there's space for a smaller one, and it could be an idea to put a smaller one to be able to find or create a dead space pocket that you could then go and explore. Dead space pockets could be sort of where you could find some asteroid belts, so instead of scanning down an anomaly for the ore or an anomaly for a combat site, there could just be a random dead space jump gate that you find, and it could be a permanent thing that you might be able to do something with. You could see if there's asteroid belts in it. You could put a player owned structure in it, which would create a little bit of a choke point and people coming in. So if you were in faction warfare or you were in a Highsec war, that could create a choke point to get to your thing. But also, if it was nullsec, you could create a choke point around a particular station or things like that. So it could be an interesting thing to explore. Continuing, we have not added the beacons to anomalies in low-sec, null-sec and wormhole space, since miners in these areas might want to hide their activity. Just as miners in Highsec might want to hide that activity, but I'll take what I can get. I can see this is sort of slanted towards gankers, but I could honestly see that this is a sort of a dev going, I have made this for engagement, without going ganker paradise. Hidden Omber sites found with scanner probes and the Highsec Mining escalation do not spawn a beacon when they are warped to, as players might want to keep the locations to themselves. So they have had that thought, just a point. Added system-wide buffer into the Empire Militia and Factor Warfare things. It grants 10% mining speed bonus, which is always a nice thing. So if you want to mine there, you've got a higher percentage of combat and ganking and all of that jazz. But at the same time, you get a bonus for doing it. So trade-off danger versus safety. The War HQ systems have shipcast, where the shipcasters are located for each Empire Militia system are located below. So Metamur, On, Intaki and Ammo. So within 3 jumps of those systems, you should be getting a little bit of a bonus. Improve the visual of low-sec asteroid belts. That should be interesting. Low-sec mining anomalies can no longer spawn multiple copies of the same solar belt, so they're tidying up some of the spawns. I know one of the systems where you would constantly get 2. I do actually have a ship in there, so we'll see if I don't get that anymore. Rare border sites that could spawn in 0.5 high security systems that border low-sec, null-sec, borders low-sec and blue AO sites, which could spawn in systems with blue AO suns and wormhole space, and null-secs can no longer spawn multiple copies of the same site in the same solar system. So yeah, it's just tidying it up so you didn't get a whole load of mining to be done. Adjusted the Jaspet deposits to... Oh, so medium has been renamed to average, so they're trying to make all of the naming similar. Nice and simple. And increased the amount of asteroids by 4 times and added 5% and 10% Jaspet variations, so it should feel more rewarding. So this is quite a big buff to high-sec and low-sec mining in general. So there is an awful lot that has been come on there, and this is why we give the feedback, because the developer bias always seems to be around about null. And that comes from the very creation. I can see it as a top-down bias, but it's not a malicious one. And a lot of people out there, especially the comments that I've seen, always associate it with maliciousness. There's an old phrase, never put down to maliciousness what could have been explained by idiocy. And while I don't want to call any of the devs idiots or stuff like that, I could see that it's an accidental thing where that's what they work around. They interact, especially with the CSM. You're interacting with big player groups, because how the fuck do you get onto the CSM if you're not known by a whole load of players, which by its very definition means that you're playing with the big corporations, the big alliances, the what you call it, the clusterfucks. So you've got all of those together, and that bias affects how they're developing the game for those groups. But those groups, although they're a large chunk of the player base, they're not the only chunk of the player base. And while you do get some people sort of in from Highsec and stuff like this, a little bit of the focus at all time, in my opinion, needs to be on the solos, because the solos are how we all started. We, almost all of us, came into the game as an individual person and then gravitated towards other people. Even me, who stays more solo these days, has been, well, part of the clusterfuck coalition at one point, going back over a decade. So these sort of things are something that we all gravitate through, and the more enticing you make it for the beginners, the better it is. Then the bonus, the other sort of bonus for this, especially when you're focusing on the mining, is the mining for raw materials is how we all get our shit, because it is blueprints and the materials. That's how everything is created. There isn't the I can buy, or there used to be at one point, but there isn't a I can buy a fully manufactured ship from somewhere. It always has a player interaction, player mining, and invention, blueprint, researching, etc. So the cheaper you make this and the more enticing you make this for the people who are that like-minded, that are happy to mine all day, every day, then the more enticing you make it for the players that are higher up in the faction warfare, because ships are cheaper to lose. And especially with now it being more of a pay to play. I don't like saying pay to win when it comes to EVE Online, because anybody who has played for any length of time knows that all of that plex will be lost in a heartbeat if you don't know how to play. So it's not exactly an advantage, it's just more shiny stuff faster. And the reward is that some of us can plex our games because other people are paying for it. So with all of that being said, it does sort of, it's almost like the reverse of the daft system they try to talk about in America, the trickle-down economy. This is the trickle-up economy. If you make it better for the base workers, the miners, then it gets better for every level, because it affects cost and things like that as it goes up. So all low-sec anomalies now have a small chance to escalate to the new exclusive low-sec escalation. So it's not just the high-sec escalation that's exclusive. The Veiled Asteroid Field. So this is the same as the high-sec one, but in low-sec. The Veiled Asteroid Field has a similar amount of minerals found in large crocite, dark ochre, or gneiss anomalies, but have condensed into far fewer asteroids at higher tiers. This has added the advantage of players not needing to combat probe you to find the site. So you can rip through them nice and fast. Then there's been a little update for mining missions. Now, full thing, I don't think I've, aside from the tutorials, I've never done a mining mission. I might actually do some just to see what's going on. However, I have just spent several days grinding for LP with Sisters of Eve, and properly grinding for LP to be able to buy the new ships, and I am just royally sick of missioning at the moment, so I'm going to be giving that a hell of a break for the next little while. But yeah, with all that being said, this is what we've got. So we've got some level 1 and level 2 missions have had a little bit of ISK and LP payout increases, and there's some quality of life passes to some of the sites too. I think they need to do that to some of the stuff in the level 4 combat missions, because I can't remember which one it is, but there's 2 separate missions where if you destroy a structure, any drones that you have out will be annihilated. At one point it cost me 2 geckos, which really pissed me off. But new mutaplasmids have been added that can mutate mining lasers, strip miners, ice miners, gas harvesters, gas clouds groups, gas clouds harvesters, mining drones, and ice harvesting drones. So there's a few things that you can mutate, and you will be able to sort of gain massive advantages of these. These also mean, because of the negative effects of mutation, that people that are manufacturing these will get a little bit of a boost to sales, because some people are going to brick a whole load of this stuff, trying to mutate them for the best possible. I know I probably will, so we shall see. Catalyst introduces 4 mining ships, so this is getting back onto the mining ships. By the way, these look fantastically shiny. Let me just go over 2 of them to begin with. So we have the Pioneer, which is the ore mining destroyer, so Venture in destroyer format. You get 10% to mining yield, 20% to mining range, 5% to gas cloud duration, 50% bonus to mining yield, 25% reduction to gas cloud scoop duration. I can't pronounce that. Blueprint originals can be purchased from the Outer Ring excavation, so I'm going to have to clone jump out there later on to get some BPs. And alpha clones are able to train this destroyer skill to level 2, so you will be able to get a taste of this on alpha. This also links into, is it a command destroyer? No, it is the ore navy mining destroyer. So this will also be able to be flown with the skills for the base level one. The command level destroyer, I believe, will need Tech 2 skills. However, this consortium destroyer has 10% bonus to mining yield, which is the same, 20% to mining range, which is the same, but 10% bonus to shield booster amount, so you can take it into a little more dangerous space, possibly. And by space, obviously it's not going to be sorted for PvP. However, there are plenty things that you can do with these things. If you use filaments to jump out to nullsec, you can go mining with them and do high speed orbiting to avoid the damage for the NPCs. So you'd be able to go out there and do a little bit of ninja mining with a couple of filaments, get back with some heavier ore. So there is a very good use for this for alpha accounts, and although you won't have the sort of full access to all of the skills, still something I would look at if you're one of the people playing on alpha. So blueprint copies for these can be found in the Upwell Consortium member stations. That includes Chemtech, Dusha, Foundry, E4Co, Freedom, Intaki Banking, a whole load of other things, and they are 30,000 LP points. Then I'm just going to slot it in because people might want to see this one, because this is what I'm all about, this thing, this fantastic ship here. So the Odysseus armor battle cruiser bonus, so for whatever level you have for your armor battle cruiser, you'll get 4% to armor resistances. For Galante battle cruiser, you will get 10% to light, medium and heavy drone damage, so drone platform. Expanded command ships skill level, you will get 50% bonus to data analyzer, relic analyzer optimal range, 5% reduction in gas cloud scoop duration, 3% bonus to the strength and duration of command bursts for exploration, 1% bonus to the strength and duration of armor command bursts, so you can use this as a sort of fleet booster. Then you get a roll bonus, 100% to expedition command bursts, 50% to the range of command burst modules, 50% to medium energy turret optimal range, 50% reduction to the CPU cost of gas cloud scoops, 37.5% boost to scan probe strength, plus 10 to relic and data analyzers, can fit covert ops cloak, so it's a sneaky bastard. Can fit command burst modules, cloaking reactivation has been dropped to 15 seconds, can fit 0 point mass entangler, so you can be hard to bump, which could be interesting in Highsec stuff, and the ship can receive bonus effects depending on the environment, so that's all kind of interesting. Now the odd part of it, and I know why this is, so 250,000 LP and 250 million to get the blueprint from Sisters of Eve. Now that seems extraordinarily high because the Nestor, which is the battleship, is only 100,000 LP and 100,000 ISK, 100 million ISK. However, if you are thinking that that is weirdly high, remember that this thing is actually technically Tech 2, so it's not a tier 1, it's a tier 2 thing, and that's why you've got the higher cost for it, which is part of the reason I have been grinding like a nutcase to get a few of these. After that, there's some newer modules that will be able to increase some of the command busting and stuff like this. I'm not going to go into that at the moment because it's more specific for each people, but I wanted to go over the mining stuff very specifically because it's something I've been calling out. It wasn't in the original information when I posted the last video. I think it came out the day after or 2 days after I posted the last video, but I think this is a welcome thing, and as I've said in the past, if it's good, I'm going to call it out. If it's bad, or if it's something I disagree with, I'm going to call it out. This is just sort of who I am, what I do. And I'm sort of, in the way that I'm doing it, if you're somebody who is a null kitten, who is always out in null sec space, then you've got people representing you. For me, the whole point behind this is to get more people into playing EVE. So that means talking about some of the bollocks when you've got YouTubers showing entirely false figures, which is how I sort of started on this channel. And then also sort of talking about some of the stuff that's coming from the development that could, with some tweaks or some changes, make it more newbie friendly, more new person friendly, because my core goal is to get more people playing EVE. When it comes to the amount of player base, if you're unaware, the player base is down to the levels that it was in sort of 2007 when I started. And also, and this is sort of hinted at in these patch notes as well, the player base is congregating around central systems. So for instance, there is a lot less of the nullsec coalitions and alliances and things in the south as there are in the north. It seems to be moving more north. And then in Highsec, everything is congregating around about Jeta. And in lowsec, it's congregating around some of the main faction systems. But for instance, the Amar Minmatar faction warfare is basically whichever side is winning is usually because there's a large chunk of players that goes into one side to win, and then switches side when it becomes more profitable to go to the other side. And there was at one point a few Chinese corporations that were doing this sort of switching forward and back between them. So if you caught it in the 2-month period that they were running one side, you could make a ton of money. But if you were in the other side, you were going to get swamped every time because these guys were running 4 deep for absolutely everything. So it has its advantages, but I would, my whole point in this is sort of the silent majority, and trying to talk about that. So that's where my side comes from, and I think this is a fantastic update for those people. And for me personally, I like the shiny stuff. I'm a ship collector, so this thing is particularly nice. They're also making some interesting passes to the capital ship, so I'm going to have to go out and find mine, because they haven't been used in decades. But this is some shiny stuff, and I think that those mining changes are a very good direction. We do need to do more stuff in general for every place. Everywhere needs more content, and I think especially Poshvin needs another hard pass going across it to put some more mechanics in there and to make it more interesting. I think allowing people to to exist there so they can have their clones there and things like that would be a lot better idea these days. And possibly a big event like the likes of which, when Poshvin dropped out of Highsec, maybe trying to pull Poshvin back into Highsec, putting some other systems at risk, or even large community sort of driven efforts to put more gates and more transport infrastructure in around about different places, Highsec, lowsec, etc., so that there would be sort of better communication paths, better transport paths between places. Have the developers figure out what would be the best and not too overpowered, but then have it as a community effort to build. I've said this many times, but one of the best experiences I have ever had in EVE was when we built the first ISS station, the first player-owned starbase in the entire game. And there was 1,000 people working together for that. It was the majority of the people on the actual game that sort of logged in together to work together to do this. And I think it was just absolutely fantastic. It was just a wicked time. And stuff like that is something that is, I think is something that needs looked at more, because from a development team and from sort of the gaming community around about EVE, especially the more vocal section of it, they favour destruction over creation. They favour blowing shit up instead of making shit. And that's not how most people are hardwired. The vast majority of gamers, as has been shown now by the likes of Helldivers and the amount of survival games that have base creation sections. If you don't know, have a look at The Art of Rust. There's actually a game server called The Art of Rust, but if you search The Art of Rust in in YouTube, you will see that in this PvP arena simulator, you have a whole load of people that are living passive lives, that are not building to attack, that are just building for the sake of building. Even some of the biggest PvPers, the building is the biggest aspect of what they're doing. Even though combat might drive it a little bit, that's not what they're about. So definitely something that I think CCP needs to take a look at is which way the winds are blowing when it comes to the general attitude of players. I think especially the likes of Helldivers and Helldivers 2 are perfect examples of this, because this is a PvE combat game and it's one of the biggest. And a lot of people are driving these sort of things, preferring to fight against the entities than the other players. Partially because when you are fighting the other players, especially in games outside of EVE, you're dealing with a phenomenal amount of fucking hacking. And it gets annoying, and especially when it's blatant and you've got game companies that are going, well, we just ban them every 3 months because then they can't get refunds on their hacks and various other reasons. And you're like, yeah, but that means I got to play with a fucking hacker for 3 months, so I'm gonna choose something else. A lot of this came up with the Battlefield stuff because they, in their own figures, put out their own figures about how many people were cheating in the game, which was 1% of the players when they were on an open beta. You're like, well, that shows the 1% that you banned, which wasn't the 1% that would have been cheating. It shows that that's in line with every other online game. So you're not banning anymore by having this extra hardware, having these hooks into a system that make it dangerous. So that's part of the reason that drives a lot of people enjoying PvE, because it's a sort of known experience, a quantifiable experience. You know you're not going to get shit rolled by somebody who is hacking, or it might be somebody who's just in for a more casual experience and doesn't want to get absolutely shit rolled by somebody who is top quality snap aim sort of skill. So with that all being said, soon is the time. We have got about 50 minutes before shutdown, so about an hour and 5 minutes before I come back on and buy a blueprint. So I'm going to make a separate video about this, but I wanted to redo this one so it was a little bit clearer. Thanks for your time, thanks for watching. Remember, if you are in Alpha and you're looking to go Omega, there is a link down in my doobly-doo for Marquee Dragon. You can use my code, which is Alone in Finland, or you can use the link down below, which will get you a discount on any of your EVE stuff. There is sales on a lot of the stuff at the moment, so you can get ultra cheap stuff, and I'm so pissed off because I bought my gear right before that. I replexed my account right before, the day before the sale came on. But at the same time, if you're somebody who is in the EU or Australia, or essentially not paying in euros, if you use Marquee Dragon, I'm not sure if I've said that correctly, but if you use Marquee Dragon pays CCP in dollars, and the translation rate between euros to their dollars to CCP means that you get quite a significant discount because of the way that international money is going at the moment. And then if you're using my discount on top of it, you'll get a little bit of reduction on top of that, and I get a little bit of kickback, which is always nice. So thank you for the people that have done that. Welcome to all of the new subscribers. There has been quite a lot more recently, which you're always welcome. And with all that being said, I'm Alone in Finland. I'll see you next time. Bye. Next time's in less than an hour. So, bye.